Tuesday. We went over lesson 7-2 in my class called Review of Molar Masses and Compounds. So I'm briefly going to go over the material we covered in class, plus a little more. So we're going to start with, there were several questions about how to solve molar mass when it got complicated. So for this compound, we have a Ca, we have an O, and we have a Cl. And all those are over here on the side. And there are 3 Cls, and then there's parentheses, and there's a 2. And so what I told people was all you're doing is we're using the molar mass, or the average atomic mass with grams per mole, and we're adding between each letter, but we're also keeping all of the parentheses that show up as well. And every number is going to become a multiplication. So these are the numbers off the periodic table. I'm adding between each of the letters. And then when I get to a number, it's 3, I'm going to multiply. And then I'm going to have my parentheses. And then I'm going to multiply by 2. And if you plug this into any calculator with all the parentheses, etc. in place, you'll do great. The other option is to remember to use PEMDAS, which would mean you do this multiplication first, then you would do this addition, then you would do this multiplication, and actually that first number would be the last thing that you add into your sum. So there we go. So that's sort of covering a question that showed up in class. These are the examples we did. And something really did go wrong here in the directions. So one of the reasons I'm doing this. So you have a problem, and in the problem there's a number. So I need to select something. So here's my number in the problem, and that number is the given. So I'm going to enter that here, 4.99 grams Na2O. Use control comma to go down. So here it just says units. This is a formula. The Na2O is a formula. My units are grams, and the value is 4.9. All of this is important, but absolutely you have to have the grams. Okay, the ratio is not the next step. The next step is actually to identify what the question is. So my question is how many moles there are. So the word moles goes over here. Sorry. We say of, but you don't write of. So moles of Na2O, that's my question. That's what I'm trying to figure out. With all these problems, you do the same. You find a number in the problem, you find a question, you write down the number in the problem and the given, you write down the question you're going. And that's because the middle is a ratio. And that ratio is going to be, I'm going to switch back over to writing. That ratio, back to blue, is to take the beginning value, this grams of Na2O, and put it on the bottom. And take these moles and put them here. And so you're either going to use the ratio, we're using this ratio. We're going to use it with the moles on top and the grams on bottom, or in the next one we'll put the grams on top and the moles on bottom, and that's based on, did I start with grams? If I start with grams, then grams goes on the bottom. And if I start with moles, like I do in this problem, then moles would go on the bottom. So the number for moles is 1, and the number for grams is actually called molar mass. So we got to do this calculation before we can get this number. I'm just going to do that. So Na is 22.99, and there are 2 of them. And then there's a oxygen, and so this will be close to 46 and 16, and I'll add those together and get 62. So it's going to be 61.98 because I wasn't quite at 23. All right, so that's my grams per mole number. That's, if you find molar mass, it has units of grams per mole. And so my gram number will be 61.98, which comes from here. So that's where that came from. All right, so the other thing I did, don't quite have room, was do this. If you take 4 times 2 over 1, you end up with 8, which is a multiplication. So if my number, my 61.98, was over 1, I would do a multiplication. But if you have 4 times 1 over 2, so now my number's on the bottom, that's actually a division. Multiplying by the inverse is a division. So the calculation here is going to be 4.9 divided by 61.98. Plug that into a calculator or ask Siri to solve that problem, and I get 0.079 if I remember right, and the answer is moles, because we already knew that the answer was moles. Okay, that's how you solve this problem. So you'll have to pause or come back. We're going to solve the second problem, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to identify the number in the problem, and that will be my beginning value, and I'll identify the question, and that will be my ending problem. And so here will be what I begin with. Let's just make it a little bigger. 7.8 moles of CO2. During recording too. We skipped the ratio, and then over here we put what is the mass. Mass is grams of CO2, and that's my question. So, red. So that's the beginning. Remember, we find what we start with, we find where we're going, then we create a ratio, and the ratio has my moles of CO2 on the bottom, and the unit for moles, the number for moles is 1, and on top we have our grams of CO2, and what's happening is, I did it again, flip back to writing, get rid of all the old writing, find my writing board. This value is going to the bottom, this value is going to the top. That's how we do it. Now we got to calculate this. 12.01 plus 16.00 times 2. Again, these are values off the periodic table. Gives me 44.01. So in here goes 44.01. And then I get my answer. And again, this is a multiplication because I have the number on top of the 1, and so it's just a multiplication, and I get 343.3 grams of CO2. All right, that's what we did. Two things. One is the answers are down here, and this answer was incorrect on the handout and probably on the Google Doc, and oops, this answer, I don't know why that changed so much, but this answer was also done incorrectly. It was missing the 0. That was it. Oh no, that's why I'm wrong. 7 was missing a 0 right here, not 2. 7 was missing a 0. Honors has to do this, and you had to refer back to the previous worksheet in 7.1. There was no examples done during class. All right, it's the end of the video. Obviously too long. Talk to you later. Bye.